So just to recap where we stopped, you have to make a space for the completed square. You're going to add and subtract the same thing. And I better turn this or they're not going to hear me at all. Here we go. Okay, so we have to leave a space to add and subtract the same thing from just the one side. The other one is doing something to both sides of the equation, but this is just changing forms, so we do this. All right, let's think about this one. This one's a little bit more difficult because of this 2 that belongs here, yes?
Do you divide first, or do you get the number and then divide?
We can't really divide first. Let me just run through the process, because if we divide by 2, we no longer have y by itself, and y has to stay by itself. So here's what we do, is we factor just the front end of it. Okay, so you just look for what's in common here, and you have to take out the 2. Okay, because whatever number is here has to be factored out of just the first half. Yes?
So if it was like 3, you factor out the 3, so
yes.
3.
Yes. And you could even find yourself in a situation, if you were using the completing the square method, of having some nasty fraction in the middle. I didn't end up putting it on a test like that for you, but just so you know. So when we will need to complete the square within this little place, okay? But our adding and our subtracting thing are going to be a little bit different, okay? So everybody understand about factoring out the 2 before we move on? Yes? Okay. So here's what happens with the adding and subtracting. Okay, so if we have our little box here, we needed to, this one, the thing to complete the square is going to be 49, right? Everybody understand? Because divide by 2 and square it, we get 49. Yes? Divide the 14 by 2 and square it, and we get 49. Okay? That's this part. Ignore this part over here for a second. No, that's not going to let me do what I wanted to do. But so anyway, so right in here, we're going to add 49 to have a completed square. What that meant is I have just added not just 49, I have added 2 49s to this whole thing. So that means to keep the same value, I also have to subtract 2 49s. So when we're adding and subtracting here, we're adding, but it's adding 2 49s. And so I have to subtract also 2 49s. Because we completed the square with a 49, but 2 is out on the outside of the parentheses. We put this on the inside of the parentheses. So we didn't just add 49, we added 2 of them. So we have to subtract 2 of them to keep the value the same.
Where'd you get the 49 from?
Divide 14 by 2 and square it. Because you're always dividing this one by 2 and squaring it. All right. Our next thing, let's give you a chance to write. Our next piece is to figure out x squared minus 14x plus 49 is what in its perfect square form? X minus 7 squared. So that's that part. So this part right here turns into x minus 7 squared. And okay, there we go. And then 7 minus 2 times 49 simplifies into, okay, let me hide that from you. 2 times 49 is 98. So 7 minus 98 gives you negative 91. And it's done. This little thing in green is just another explanation of what I was saying. I added two 49s. So I added 98. I have to also subtract 98 because I'm not doing anything to change a value. This is all on the same side of the equals. It's only when you do things on both sides of the equals that you can change a value, but on the same side, you have to keep the value. This is now in vertex form. Remember from the other section, we had vertex form where you had x minus h plus k. So we had that. We would be able to go through and find the vertex. You'd be able to find the axis of symmetry, all that other stuff. Graphing it would be a little bit annoying because we've got this negative 91 to deal with. But you could at least identify those things. Okay? And there's just one more thing to look at. Everybody have that down? Yeah. Okay, one more thing to look at. So this is kind of going backwards to find out what k would have to be to make this a perfect square. Okay? If you knew what k was, you would divide it by 2 and square it to get that. So square root it and then
Multiply by 2.
Square root and multiply by 2. Okay? There we go. So if k over 2 squared is 25, k over 2 has to equal 5, or k over 2 has to equal what? If I use the square root to solve. Negative 5. So because this was our method, we were kind of doing it on our heads, but divide by 2 and square it, or as Ryan said, use square root it and then multiply by 2. So here's our multiply by 2. So 10 or negative 10. Yeah, because it just said to find k.
You multiply 5 and 2, that's all that's going to be.
Yeah, because k over 2 is 5, so, you know, we get to a point sometimes in algebra where it's like we did all this complicated stuff and then it's a one-step equation and people go, what? You know, because it's just like you've just done so much and, you know, you made your brain really work and then you're like, oh, okay, yeah, that's the, yeah, I get that. So that's where that is. And that's the end of the lesson. Basketball team, you just missed a little bit. Hope you're having a good game. I hope you had a good game because you'll watch this when you're done. Bless you.